Hello, I'm Tom Cooley, go-to-market manager for in-memory databases. I'm excited to host a conversation today on a significant feature launch for one of the most successful AWS services, Amazon ElastiCache, our in-memory caching service. We'll be reviewing ElastiCache and then discussing the recently launched ElastiCache Serverless. I'd like to introduce Itai Moaz, General Manager of In-Memory Services. Welcome, Itai.
Tom, thanks for the introduction. Excited to be here.
Great. Could you maybe start by just giving the viewers a little background about yourself and your current role?
Yeah, so I've been at Amazon for almost 9 years, and in the last 5 years, I've been on the in-memory databases team. I'm leading two services, Amazon ElastiCache and Amazon MemoryDB. Amazon ElastiCache is a fully managed Redis and Memcached compatible service, has real-time microsecond latency performance, scales to hundreds of millions of requests per second, enterprise-grade security, 4 nines of availability, and today we have hundreds of thousands of customers using ElastiCache to achieve better performance, higher scale, and lower cost. Amazon MemoryDB for Redis is a bit newer. We launched it 2 years ago, and we've seen really good adoption rates. Because the main focus today is ElastiCache, so I'll just briefly say that MemoryDB is a Redis-compatible, durable database, has microseconds reads, low single-digit millisecond writes. It scales to 500 nodes in a single cluster with 4 nines of availability and enterprise security. So overall, I've been fortunate to get to work with a really good team solving these hard problems for our customers.
Thanks, Itai. Great intro. Before we dive into ElastiCache Serverless, can you talk to us about the importance of in-memory caching in general and the benefits that customers receive?
Yeah, so today's application demand low response time. And with traditional databases, as the load on the database increase, it slows down the response time of the application. And though we've seen a lot of progress in disk's performance, like SSDs and NVMEs, you can still see an order of magnitude slower than DRAM. And when you reach a certain scale, your hot data needs to be in memory. Otherwise, your application will be too slow or too expensive or both. And this is why cloud customers are moving to modern data architectures using purpose-built databases and pairing them with caching. When you think about many typical AWS workloads like websites and mobile application, fintech, and media streaming, and so on, the application speed predominantly depends on the read performance. Slow reads from the services down the stack eventually pile up and slow the application, causing a bad customer experience. And when using shared caches like ElastiCache, it reduces the response time and enables the application to function. And then in addition, distributed caches reduce the infrastructure costs. What we've seen with ElastiCache is that many of our customers reduce their cost and save up to 55% when they add ElastiCache to their architecture. And it is more cost effective than just scaling the database, and the combination of the low cost and low latency are very compelling to customers. And I've seen this pattern again and again and again with many different customer workloads.
Well, Itai, I'm sorry to report that I've been in high tech for several decades, and applications have always gravitated towards speed. And now with all the pressure on customers to make use of vast amounts of data, I can see where in-memory caches are going to play a critical role. They need that fast data access. I always think about in-memory as its time has truly come. Before we move on, when you say caching, people have different views or many different kinds of caches. So caching in general means different things to different people. I think it might benefit the viewers to just briefly elaborate on how caching is deployed with ElastiCache.
Well, as you said, the concept of caching is not new. It's existed for years. And in fact, caching is almost everywhere. It's in hardware like CPUs, in software, in storage systems, in databases, and specifically in the cloud. If you think about typical applications, they use several services with a scale-out architecture. and they store the data in their databases and storage systems. And as such, you can think of many places to put your cache across the stack, and you can embed cache in each of these microservices. However, the solution that really scales is a distributed cache like ElastiCache. And I'll explain why. Think about a service or a microservice that handles or fetch the data it fetches from a database or a downstream service. And then if you have multiple instantiations of this, right, it was a scale-out architecture, and then each of them tries to cache the data in its own local memory. And what will happen is that the data is not shared, and therefore you're going to get a low cache hit ratio. If you do that, you also couple your application scaling with your cache, which adds more infrastructure cost. And with ElastiCache, which is a distributed cache, you can have a cache size that is bigger than what a single instance can hold. And also, you can achieve your optimal cache hit ratio because the client applications are connected to a shared cache. You can scale your cache based on the amount of data or the amount of throughput, and both of these are decoupled from all the other parts of your application, making it more cost-effective. With ElastiCache, you can also define TTLs, which is a time to live, an expiration algorithm, or you can define LRU, least recently used, as an eviction algorithm. And ElastiCache will apply those kind of algorithms to your cache. And ElastiCache provides a very advanced caching solution that is really hard to build out of the box and on your own with embedded caching. And with the fast network speeds that AWS offers today, you can get client-side microseconds latencies even when you go across the availability zones. And then the last point is that typically adding ElastiCache to your application does not require a lot of code changes. The most common pattern that we see is the look-aside cache. This means that you fetch the data from the cache. If you get a cache miss, you go fetch it from the database and update the cache. And then all subsequent requests will get a cache hit until the data is expired or evicted. So this is a relatively small change in the code in the application, which have substantial performance and cost savings benefits.
I love it. I mean, the more it just seems in the last year or two when we're having discussions with some of our most advanced customers, some of our largest customers, they're starting to speak about ElastiCache and caching as a foundational building block to data architectures. It's sort of shifted from a nice to have to a must have. And I think that's because ElastiCache delivers so much value. I mean, it cost optimizes across all the data stores, and of course, the speed of data access that you were just referring to. Is there anything else about ElastiCache you'd like to share with the viewers, a high-level overview, engine supported, how long it's been around, and the investment made, and man years, and things of that nature?
Yeah, so ElastiCache GA'd initially in 2011 as a managed Memcached solution. And then later on in 2013, as open source Redis became popular, our customers asked us to extend ElastiCache to support as a managed solution for Redis. And both of these open source engines are very popular and now ubiquitous in the industry. And specifically with open source Redis, its popularity soared due to its rich and simple API, the data structures the developers love, like lists and sets and sorted sets and hashes, the pub sub functionality, the replication. And both of these open source Redis and Memcached are really, really great products that developers love. But self-managing them is hard. You need another system to manage it, to monitor the nodes, that initiate the failover, to recover and replace faulty nodes, install security updates, and so on. So you need to build that management system, and you also need to employ a DevOps team to maintain it and handle operations. So most companies, they opt for a managed Redis or a managed Memcached solution. And this is exactly where ElastiCache excels in. We have invested hundreds of dev years in building an excellent managed solution, supporting a huge scale, both a huge scale at the cluster level with up to 1 petabyte or 500 nodes in a single cluster, or generally at the large scale where we manage hundreds of thousands of days across all of AWS regions. So, and we do this with all of the AWS level of security, compliance, high availability, and operational stability. So as Andy Jesse says, you cannot compress experience. And we have over a decade of experience managing a very large scale caching solution on AWS.
Fantastic. Well said. I always say to our customers, we treat caching as a business, not a feature. ElastiCache is one of the most successful services at AWS. It's right at the top. So first of all, congratulations. From your perspective, what are the reasons for its widespread adoption?
Well, first and foremost, ElastiCache provides customers ability to scale their applications, improve performance, and reduce cost. And adding ElastiCache is typically a small architecture change, since the data is still in the database and the application logic does not change much, right? So with a relatively simple architecture change, and as we said earlier, simple code change, you will get all of these benefits and all of this magic, right, of scale, performance, and cost. And this is what makes it, very popular. And then the second reason is because developers really love the open source APIs. And this applies to both engines and especially to Redis, which has a very vibrant community, extensive documentation, tutorials, client libraries, best practices, sample codes, and so much more. And we go and we contribute to this community. We contribute to the open source clients, and we contribute to the open source Redis project. And very importantly, with all of the enhancements that we do on top of that for high availability, for performance, price capacity, scale, security, compliance, and now serverless, all of those we maintain compatibility with the open source APIs. So it's important for our customers, it's important for us. So the open source compatibility and the simplicity, and then the huge benefits of scale, performance, and cost.
That's a great summary. Whether it's data analytics or applications or machine learning, and now clearly the hype and excitement around Gen AI, everyone always jumps to the application layer. But there's going to be some data access bottlenecks. And the fact remains, we see that the vast majority of data resides in relational databases or maybe object stores. So I really see ElastiCache as a means to modernizing existing database foundations to prepare for these applications that are very thirsty for performance. Well, let's shift to serverless. So ElastiCache, as you mentioned, has been around over a decade in the marketplace, and you're launching serverless. Why is this important for customers? Maybe let's just start with a few key benefits.
So we decided to simplify further the managed caching solution. So our instance-based ElastiCache is very flexible, and it provides customers many configuration and provisioning options, which is great because this helps them fine-tune their caches. But all of this flexibility led customers to making a lot of choices and planning. They needed to decide which instance types to use, how many of them, what configuration options, and then once the customer created the cache clusters, their experience was pretty smooth as a managed solution. However, they still needed to plan a lot in advance and decide what configuration they want, plan for their peak traffic, and then they needed to keep track over time whether the user changes and then revisit their initial configuration or capacity decisions. With ElastiCache Serverless, customers create a cache under a minute without needing to plan anything ahead of time. We ensure that the cache cluster is properly configured with high availability, and we adjust its size based on the customer's workload, and we take care of all of the provisioning and scaling And we just remove all this cognitive load from our customer. And what we did is we just removed almost all of the configuration knobs so customers can just focus on their application development. So essentially, you just specify a cache name and you get started. Sorry, just one advantage is that you avoid the over or under provisioning, right? With serverless, we do the right sizing on behalf of the customers, and they only pay for what they need.
I'm really excited to bring it to the market. There's a lot of customers that may not know Redis well, or even data caching, and they can more easily give it a try now. New use cases, caching relational for cost savings. So to my mind, serverless reduces the friction to experimenting with caching, and that's going to be really great for us and our customers. Is there anything more about the serverless option that you wanted to drill into?
Well, there's lots of goodies, and I can talk about this for a long time, but just,
minute or two.
just be quick here. So first, we continuously innovate and simplify while keeping the high bar on security, availability, scale, and performance. So with that, we have serverless supports 5 terabytes of data and millions of requests per second on a single cache cluster. We have the high availability with 4 nines and SLA. We have the in-memory performance with sub-millisecond P50 client-side latencies. We have the single endpoint experience, which simplifies the client library configuration in the application and making it more resilient. It scales to hundreds of thousands of client connections, which is also something that you can benefit the ElastiCache serverless architecture for. And this makes it really ideal when you use other services solutions like Lambda, or when you use containers like Kubernetes and Amazon EKS. It has all of the security features that we have already, like encryption, role-based access control, IAM authentication, and many more. Same compliance as the instance-based ElastiCache. And then in terms of pricing, customers pay only for the data they use in gigabyte hours and the compute they use with ElastiCache processing units. So we have a lot more information on the website, but this is just the tip of the iceberg on some of the features that you get.
Now, that's a great overview. Briefly, do you see particular customers or use cases that will immediately find serverless interesting?
I mean, as you said earlier, we already have hundreds of thousands of customers that use ElastiCache and for many different workloads, and they will all benefit from this. But as you said, with serverless, we simplify the experience, and therefore we open up the virtues of ElastiCache to all of those who have less expertise in caching. And specifically, if you think about developers using cloud-native technologies, like serverless and containers, they will find ElastiCache serverless very, very interesting. And they're typically looking for an easy way to start development without worrying about provisioning, setup, configuration. And then in addition, we have the DevOps and the infrastructure team, right? That they need to operate caches at scale and sometimes with unpredictable scaling needs. And they will benefit from the serverless automatic scaling that keeps up with the application's data storage and throughput requirements.
Very good. I wish we had more time, but unfortunately we have to wrap soon. In conclusion, is there something the viewers should take away with them today? What top of mind 1 or 2 points do you think they should retain?
Well, I think there are 2 key takeaways. So if there's 2 things that you need to remember from this session, these are the 2. First, if your AWS application uses data, for example, using databases like RDS and Aurora, and you still haven't added caching, I encourage you to explore ElastiCache. It will enable your application to scale, reduce the cost, and boost the application's performance. And the second one is that with ElastiCache Serverless, getting all of these benefits has never been easier. ElastiCache Serverless saves you time and enables you to focus more on innovating on behalf of your customers. So just give it a try.
Perfect. I learned a great deal today, and I expect our viewers did also. I asked them to reach out to us, and we can certainly dive a lot deeper. Itai, thanks for taking the time to provide your views on ElastiCache Serverless. Very much appreciated.
All right. Thank you.